I'm in the wrong file. Let me just find the agenda. That will help me.
Oh, Lily.
There's Jamie.
Is Jamie logged in?
Yep, Jamie has arrived.
Oh, Jamie, hello. We only got your picture last time. This is nice. Everyone's on video.
Yeah, I think I was driving or biking.
Yeah.
Biking during the meeting. Nice.
Multitasking. Okay, so we'll officially start the meeting. I'm going to ask Stu and Elizabeth to keep me right on anything I'm doing here because, yeah, I'm just getting to grips with all this and what we need to formally note and everything like that. So any pointers or just stop me in my tracks, that would be really helpful. So first is the minutes from last meeting. Are there any changes? Has everyone had the chance to read them?
Yes, I had a chance to read them. Everything looked good to me.
Do you want to make a move?
Well, later. Okay, I'll move. I'll move that we approve the minutes from
I'll
last
second
meeting.
it.
Okay,
Next.
Then,
That means all in favor, and those who approve say aye, and those who don't say no, or you put your hand up here in this case.
I vote aye.
Those opposed? And then
That's it.
we're
Thank you.
good.
Yep.
okay, then announcements. The next meeting is on the 23rd of September. I think we should, unless anyone else has a subcommittee meeting planned, come back to that because it's impacted by our agenda item on subcommittees, projects and tasks under the Climate Energy Action Plan. Sorry, Brian.
I cannot be there the 23rd.
Okay.
And I may not be there the 23rd. It's my birthday, and I don't know if I'm going to be in town, but maybe if I'm out of town, I can be there anyway, because, hey, we're virtual.
I'll be on the Grand Canyon. I can't be there at all.
Well, now you're
Use
showing
satellite.
off.
Do we have a quorum if everyone else is there? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other announcements? Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. Just a quick point of information. I'd never received an email notice of this meeting. I mean, I entered through data that was on my phone. I'm just curious if I just missed it or what.
Yeah, so you should have got a separate email from the no reply at Zoom.
It says administration.
Yeah. I mean, I just resent you one, so you hopefully got that one to pop in.
Okay, I hope so. Thanks.
I mean, you're here, so.
Yeah, well, I went in on a really weird way. Not through.
Came in the back door.
Yep, came in the back door. Fine, let's go for it.
Okay. And then moving on to the council update and the staff update. Should we start with the council update?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Can you hear me, Lisa?
I didn't understand what you said, or I couldn't hear you.
I said moving on to the next agenda item for the council update and the staff update. And should we start with the council update?
Well,
Thank
Steph-
you, sorry.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that might be. Let's see, what's the council update? Last meeting took up a lot of questions with the planning action. And so a lot of other parts of the meeting we didn't get to. With regard to the planning action, it was not found to be, it was approved with the planning commission. So that was the main item that we talked about at the last meeting. This next meeting, we have several other agenda items that are fairly meaty. I don't know what else to say. Anybody else have any?
James?
Thank you. Hey, Steph, how you doing?
I'm just sort of here.
Well, that's good. At least you're there because you're only a block away from me as the crow flies.
Really?
Yeah, I live on Altamont, so if I were to walk straight through to your street, if I could.
Hey, all
very, very
right.
close. Yeah. So I have a question regarding something you brought up last meeting,
Mhm.
and that is, and I've heard other rumors, that the Conservation Commission and the Climate Policy Commission may be joining. And I wondered if there's any news from City Council. I assume that it's a City Council decision whether to merge those or not, or are you at liberty to talk about it?
I don't think we have really talked about it in the council. I think that there was more of a desire to have a meet and greet. That's why I thought this was a meet and greet. Talking about what the pros and cons of that would be with the people on the commissions before any official decision was made.
Okay, so that helps, because I know that you mentioned it last time, and I was just curious about what's been going on.
It was really just, I mentioned it from my experience and feeling like, from what I heard from different people, at least it felt like some people wanted to have more of a connection between the two committees, and they wanted policy and the outreach to be possibly more connected than they were. So that was probably more my thing from being on the ad hoc committee and what some people have said to me.
Okay, thanks, Steph. I appreciate it.
Council.
I can speak to this. We shouldn't get too off the rails with the announcements section here, but I can do my staff bit and speak to that for a second. I think there are some people who recognize an opportunity for joining the two. There's been a little bit of discussion, mostly offline, about it. I think it's a natural topic of conversation at the meet and greet. So maybe we should talk about it when that meeting happens. There was a little discussion of it in the CPC meeting, and I think the consensus in that group was that the two charters are pretty well delineated at this point, and that the two groups can work together. But I'm not gonna, let's make a formal agenda item and the next meeting if we need to talk about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt it'll be something that we talk about at the meet and greet. So, but there won't be any decisions at that meeting. Just
okay. So I'm only bringing this up because I know that there are also things happening with City Council, and there are also, we're in COVID times. There are staff limitations. There are all kinds of things that are happening, and so I don't think that it's just going to be the COCC and CPC discussion, but it might be a bigger discussion too. And Steph, you answered the question from the council perspective, and that's really what I was looking at. So if the CPC and the COCC have that conversation and we want to recommend something, I guess that's where it goes. So thank you.
I just like to throw in the one thing. I missed the last meeting, but the meeting before, whenever that was, I expressed dismay that it was very difficult as a member of this commission to talk to the policy commission, that there really was no way to do that. There was some discussion about it, and certainly I hope that can get resolved with or without the meet and greet discussion. I was put in a really odd position trying to communicate at a, in the public forum at the policy meeting, and it just wasn't appropriate. I was a Conservation Commission member, unable to participate in the very discussion that I was supposed to be able to participate in because of our procedure.
I remember you covering that, Larry, and we are having a meet and greet. Risa and I have also got in touch with the chair and the vice chair of the CPC, and we're going to meet with them. But like I said at the last meeting, I don't believe the focus should only be on the CPC, but I think we need to focus on the fact that there's 30 commissions and we should all be working in an integrated way towards the same goals and understanding what we add to the table and demonstrate there in terms of climate outreach and conservation. Because the more we keep looking at ourselves in this insular way on climate change, the more we're going to work in isolation. And I absolutely support that post-COVID times, we need to look at all 30 commissions, how they're working together and what they're achieving together. So I think the meet and greet will go some way. I think meeting with the vice chair and the chair will go some way. I think we just see how those discussions roll out. And yeah, at the moment, I think our focus should be on what we can add in terms of value as all the people on the meeting here giving up their time to do something. Otherwise, yeah, everyone knows how I feel. We discuss times of meetings and meetings all the time, but really, really keen we discuss like the substance on what we can do, because we have got those things in the pipeline. Risa.
Thank you.
And my hope with this very first meeting of the two commissions, that it not be focused on making some decision about whether we are going to blend or whatever, but really I just want to meet these people.
Yep.
I just want to, I want it to not be like, well, so are we going to have one commission or two? It's just like, well, who are you? What are y'all about? This is what we're about, and very nice to meet you.
Yep, it's about building relationships and that working relationship. And we can't
Yeah.
make decisions anyway. It's an informal meet and greet.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to emphasize
I
that.
think from my perspective, what I see and have heard is that if you're developing policy, you want to be sure that the outreach of that policy is realistic and that the people that are in charge of that part of the experience feel connected to that. And there are certainly also budget issues. I mean, I think that's realistic to know. And there are also issues with what how this commission interacts with other commissions as well, in terms of looking at things from a perspective of energy use and goals that the CEP has. So I think there was some thought that there would just be more cohesion. At least that was my thought. And I feel like that sometimes people on the Conservation Commission were feeling maybe that they weren't as connected as to policy as they would like to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any more for the staff updates, Stu?
To other updates?
Maybe Stu has any for the staff update?
Yeah, I didn't actually do the staff update yet, except to say the piece about the two commissions. I can give you a few highlights, some things that are in progress. We did in fact win a grant from Bonneville Environmental Foundation to fund some electric vehicle projects. So I'm hopefully going to be launching those in October, November, once the program gets pulled together a little more formally. We haven't signed the paperwork just yet for the extra funding, but that's, I think it's in my inbox actually. So that will be interesting. One of the things about that I'm most excited about is a pilot for a new e-bike incentive, which I don't think there's been any quite like it in the state yet, but we're going to try to run it through the local bike shops such that Ashland electric customers will be able to get a few $100s off an electric bike. That's the current proposal. And alongside that, we're also going to be putting out the revised electric vehicle incentive, which once we get all of the funding locked in will be $1,500 for a newer used EV priced less than $30,000. So those are both pretty interesting projects coming up. I'm going to be getting an AmeriCorps person here very shortly. She's actually arrived in Ashland already, which is great. She will be helping me with some pretty specific outreach projects that have been waiting in the wings for a while. And once we get those going, I will bring that back to you folks to have a look, because she's a great, great candidate, and I'm really excited to have her. She'll be here for 11 months doing a lot of outreach focused stuff. So I look forward to that. There's a variety of other programs that I'm trying to develop, the most exciting of which is a $10 million loan. Well, I don't know that we're going to get that loan, but I've applied for a $10 million loan to fund energy retrofits in buildings in Ashland. And hopefully that would be an on-bill financing type of project. So that if it comes to fruition, it could be quite impactful, but also will be a ton of work and will require some significant outreach, which I would enjoy hearing your perspective on once that gets underway, if we can find the funding. I've talked to the CPC about this project a little bit, and it seems like a natural project for the climate plan implementation, regardless of where the funding comes from. So even if we don't get this loan, I hope that we'll forge ahead with the project anyway. It may take a bit longer if we don't. We're also in the midst of the public charging expansion project right now. Those of you who have electric vehicles have probably seen this already, but we tore out the old chargers on the Pioneer Street parking lot, and we'll be putting in more than twice as many as were there. So that will be great. Probably another week or two before that comes online, but I'll have a few things to figure out after that. But pretty exciting to see that come about. It's been in process for a while. Talking about doing two different grant applications to Oregon DEQ for different projects this year, one with SOU potentially, and another with our wastewater treatment plant to look at an alternate way to deal with our biosolids. So that'll be interesting. It's a little snapshot, some stuff that's going on. Probably shouldn't take up too much of this meeting telling you about that, but I'm happy to take questions if you're wondering what's happening with any of those, or I can just keep us rolling down the agenda. Larry.
Yeah, I'm wondering about if you could just, if no one else is interested, I'm really interested in the biosolids idea, and I know nothing about what you're working on. If there's any documentation or information or description you can email us or something would be fine. We don't need to talk about it now.
Yeah, there's not yet, but there will be. I think Public Works is going to probably be taking something to council here in September. So once we have that council document, that's the soonest we'd have something written out.
Okay, it would be great if you shared it right away.
Yep. Brian James.
On the new chargers, are they going to be the same speed charger?
They're about 20% faster, but if you, depending on your car, you may or may not be able to take advantage of that. The Tesla will.
Okay.
Yeah, that was along the line of my question as well. How will that increase the number of voltage or kilowatt hours that the system will have?
They're higher amperage chargers.
Oh, amperage, okay.
Yeah.
And so, do you know how long the, I guess this grant will last in terms of how we utilize it?
Yeah, it's fixed funding. So the way I have it worked out in the program design right now is there's enough funding in the grant for 70 electric vehicle incentives and 50 electric bikes.
So from the electric bikes side of things, knowing that the contract for the bike rental thing is gone,
Yep.
is there any movement toward using that money toward an electric bike rental kind of thing, where it would be a similar kind of setup where a person could rent it and return it to a different location?
Yeah, those are two pretty independent projects. They don't overlap hardly at all. The bike share is going away, and at this point, we actually lost all of our funding for the rest of that contract. And it, is significant, but not significant enough that we would make it back through legal action. So basically, the bike share is essentially offline for the rest of the year. We don't own those bikes, unfortunately. The person that does is supposed to come collect them at some point, but they have not yet. So, there's an opportunity to stand that program back up if we're willing to invest pretty significant amounts of money. But given COVID and the different budget issues that we're having right now, and also there are a variety of communities in Oregon that are working together to try to craft a more, I wouldn't say statewide, but like a state interoperable bike share solution. So everybody who lost their bike share because of COVID is kind of collaborating right now on what a solution might look like. And that's in some ways being led by Eugene. So my hope is that we're going to work with them and some other cities to come up with something better for next year. Given the amount of effort it would take to stand up the current program, it just doesn't seem feasible. So
thanks, Stu. Appreciate that.
Sure. Risa?
I'm just wondering what happened to the people that were part of that program? Like, did they?
You mean the local contractors?
No, the local users that were a part of that program. Or
yeah.
It didn't work that way. You just put a credit card in and you used it.
Yeah, some people had an annual membership. Everybody who was paid into that system lost whatever they had. So
that was what I wanted to know. I guess that's the most unfortunate part.
It's bankruptcy, COVID bankruptcy. It unfortunately hit quite a lot of bike shares, the smaller ones. So we're hoping to come up with something better next year. I was actually planning on an expansion of the bike share in 2020 prior to the bankruptcy. So things were looking up in our rideshare analytics. We're looking pretty good.
Yeah.
But, version 2 of that system's going to have to wait until next year. Marnie?
Yeah. Sorry, I had some noise in my house and I missed what your loan was for. Could you say that again? Sorry about that.
Yeah, so there's many communities that have an energy type of loan that you can get to make property improvements. It varies pretty widely what those programs fund. Some are very specific, some are very generous, but the basic idea is that you could borrow a medium sum of money, say $25,000, and be able to make some holistic upgrades to a home, and then pay that back on your utility bill.
Awesome.
So that's the issue. It creates a lot of challenges for, how does the city work as a bank and, that kind of thing. But it's been done in a lot of places, and there's no reason we can't do it here. Except we need, startup funding. Okay, well, I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you for all the good questions. Appreciate that. And of course, email me anytime.
Thanks, Stu. Okay, so we have 20 or so minutes to cover two items that we couldn't cover for various reasons at the last meeting. One is on the monthly column in the sneak preview, and future articles or change in format. Can anyone remind me where this conversation got to before? Because I know that we were regularly putting in articles.
So I can't exactly remind us about that, but maybe there's something we need to look into is the future of this venue. It's always been on the sneak preview, but I think with COVID, the printing is not what it was before. Neither is the distribution. And so I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but I actually haven't received any emails from the publisher of that in quite a while asking for contributions. Normally they're like, hey, give us your article, please. So we might want to check in with them about their desire to keep running something like that. However, Curtis, correct. I do think that there's a place for this group to generate content and that you should continue to do so. Whether it goes to sneak preview or not, I don't know. But I think this is a really good brain trust for making those kind of articles.
Yeah,
I agree. I think we should be generating content as outreach in terms of education, awareness, outreach. We should be generating content and getting it out as much as we can in different areas. So I don't know all the areas to get information through. I can do through SAU channels and my own social media here. Can we do stuff through the official City of Ashland social media on what happens? Where else can we generate content? Risa.
well, I would think that the first step is to decide whether or not it's something that we value, that we want to keep doing. The good part about the sneak preview is that, and we don't need to limit ourselves to the sneak preview, but since it's a monthly publication, it keeps us in the group 12 times a year to have the opportunity for the outreach. I think we can brainstorm. I would be in favor of keeping that slot if Curtis wants us to, and also to brainstorm all the other venues, the social media, all the other different places that effort can go, because it takes a long time to write for it. And we might as well get a much bigger bang for our efforts.
Do you want to contact, I don't know, Curtis, do you want to contact him to see where he's at?
Yes, ma'am. But it would really depend on if we're in. You know what I mean? Yes, I'll do it, but we need to talk to all these faces here to see that y'all are wanting to continue to do that.
Yes.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, because everyone's got a responsibility here to be generating that content, depending on what we're working on as well, to make it relevant.
Yeah.
I don't think it can just be, I think it should be relevant to what we're trying to achieve in terms of outreach and education.
That's how it has been. I mean, we've been doing this Conservation Corner for, it could be 15 years.
Okay. Mani?
Does anyone have an idea of how much our Conservation Corner gets read, and does it have the impact that we're looking for? How important is it? I've always felt really good about it, and it seems like an important part of what we do, and it keeps us on our game as far as keeping up with it, and having different topics because we all have different backgrounds of expertise. So I thought it was a really positive thing, but I am curious, does anyone read it? And what is the distribution there? I know everyone gets it, but I don't know how many people.
Well, there was an informal poll, Marnie, and people were asked what their favorite part of the sneak preview was. 6 times out of 10, it was surprisingly the Conservation Corner.
Really?
No, I just made it up.
Oh.
You sounded convincing.
How could that be?
It's a good question. I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
I think this is just another one of those things that the COVID era has sort of knocked down, and we need to consciously put it back together. Obviously, it's valuable. And I think at the same time, we need to connect it up with other means of communicating like social media. And we should figure out how to do that. Thanks.
Jamie?
I'm wondering if Curtis has numbers on his readership.
I'll
Because-
ask him.
Mhm.
Could
Risa?
do we want to talk more, or do we want to take a vote, make a thing? Do we need to, or
This
we
is
need-
just a discussion item. You
Okay.
can make a motion if you want to make a motion.
well, if it will
It
help us
wasn't
move.
planned on. I have a potential topic maybe for longer future discussion, which is, what is the audience you want to have?
What?
Like, who do you want to reach in theory? Like, if you could have whatever, it's good to know where is the sneak preview going? How many people does it get to?
It goes to every
to know.
household in Ashland.
But it's also good to know, like, what would be your ideal? Because then we can try to get there.
Can't reach any more than every household in Ashland. I mean, we don't know if they read it, but it gets in their mailbox.
I've not
Yeah.
seen it.
Well, yeah, the sneak has been a standby. I don't suggest that we should leave it behind.
But
Um,
add to it. Add to the distribution. When an article is printed, it goes to a standard 8 different places.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. You've got more chance of reaching a wider audience.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of content that Elizabeth has done a great job of organizing on the conservation webpage. So you could look there sometime and see, like, oh, what's missing for me here. Maybe that would be useful, because that's a nice archive of the existing content from this commission.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, we'll look at that. Are there any pressing ideas for articles that we should focus on, or we could start looking at doing? Because regardless of whether Curtis is still running it or calling for articles, should we be thinking about what we should be writing about, or that might come after agenda item 7?
I think it would be nice if we had something that was very specific to the pandemic. One of the things that comes to mind is the problem that all of us, I'm sure, have seen, is basically masks made out of various synthetic materials, throwaway masks laying all over the place, encouraging people to use proper cloth masks, and maybe giving them a quick guide on how to wash them, which it took me a while to figure out a quick and easy way to do it. And now it's a nothing.
Well,
But-
maybe you'd like to write about it.
I'd be happy to.
Well,
Marnie?
we got one.
I was going to say similar to what Larry said, but there's so many things that have changed just a little bit, but enough that they're probably affecting everyone. People aren't reusing bags nearly as much as they used to. So I bet there's all of these different changes that we're all experiencing, and giving some guidance on those, I think at this time would be very timely.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I was saying in a meeting earlier, let's not create another public health crisis by solving one. So yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing here, and a more serious one as well. So we could write it in that way. Climate change has killed far more people than the pandemic. It's a perception thing at the moment, though.
Risa?
I would like to write about Rogue to Go, but I'm trying to figure out which would be like if it would be good to do it maybe in October. Well, actually, sorry, I'm thinking out loud, but Stu, maybe no, it couldn't hurt to have two. I would do one for right now and do a rah-rah. And then when the grant wraps up, we could do one with that data, unless there's other things that y'all want to write about.
There was one other idea I had was kind of what we're seeing in terms of what we value from the pandemic. So the positive side of it in terms of connection to nature, outdoors, people, and things like that, and how it's made us reflect in a way. I think that's important, particularly with the outdoors and nature.
And our wonderful parks.
Yep.
We are so lucky that we're stuck here in this beautiful place.
Yep. So there's loads of ideas.
I have a request of an article from Recology that Jamie would write, just to kind of do a sweep update on, you know, are there any changes with recycling? What up with the household hazardous waste event that didn't happen in May? There's a rumor it will happen. It would be great to have that kind of information. For me, as just a consumer that doesn't know the answers.
Just so you all know, keep getting an echo. The household hazardous waste event has been rescheduled for October 17th, and I'm in the process of getting that word out. So if we did write an article, or if I did write an article about it, probably should be real soon. Other than that, we can just put it in the city source. Elizabeth's awesome about doing that when I need her to.
Well, it can't go, you can't spread it too much. I mean, it would be great for it to be in the city source. It'd be great for it to be in the sneak to increase the chances.
I think we might be out of time for both of those options at this point. Elizabeth has something to say.
The city source that will go out in September that has all the October events, because it also goes out at the very end of the month, is already out. But Jamie, if you want to get on the schedule to bring something back at our September meet, actually, you might be right, Stu. Is it do we have to have 2 months out?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
For city source? Yeah.
So the next, or for sneak preview.
Oh, for sneak, it's a little shorter. You might make the sneak if they're still wanting articles. That was my question, is do they, like, I'm sure they would print it if we pay them. But
no, they should.
You know what I'm saying, though? Is like,
yeah, they better.
Gratuity, there may be less gratuity in the COVID era than there was.
Well, I will call him tomorrow and I will let Jamie know what he says. How's that?
Great.
Is that?
Risa, will you also ask him the deadline for submitting something for October?
Sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
I am a goober. What the deadline is, you said.
Because our meeting in September is on the 23rd, and that might be too late to approve it, but it might be just in time, so.
Okay.
So is that on the hazardous waste? Okay. So is anyone going to take forward writing? Because I think it would still be good to have content prepared to share. If some of the ones people mentioned, if they wanted to progress that. in terms of Larry and the masks, and washing the masks, and then if anyone else wants to progress one.
With regard to washing the masks, there are also questions as to if you're going to use shopping bags. Are cloth bags safer to use because you can wash them than plastic bags? So that might be something to include with that article.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think if it probably, we used to have the little chart of running article ideas previously. It'd be good if everybody could send email like 1 or 2 ideas maybe before the next meeting, or let's just say in the next 2 weeks.
That would be good, Stu. Yeah, let's have that action in the next 2 weeks. The article title and what it would cover and why. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll have something to refine at the next meeting.
Okay. But in the meantime, we can progress those 2, the hazardous waste one and the mask one.
Thanks.
Marnie?
Is the mask one a whole article, or do we think that should be combined with other kind of issues related to COVID conservation, like the bags? Or would that be in one article, or do you think those are all separate?
I think it's up to you folks. I think the word limit is 750. Is that right, Elizabeth? Do you remember? Or anyone?
I don't remember.
It's kind of short, but you could always have an excerpted version for the sneak and do something longer on the webpage. But yeah, you could split it up into however many micro articles you want. I mean, if Curtis thinks it's okay.
I'm curious what Larry thinks. How long of an article is he envisioning?
Well, I'm thinking of, maybe just one good solid paragraph. But what I'm thinking, and I'm sorry, Commission and Elizabeth, that I used the chat. It's very frustrating to me to be constrained by the city rules. And we could publish the chat. The chat can be saved. Okay, fine.
We're not doing it. I'm sorry, but
I
please don't argue with me on this.
I'm not arguing with you. You're not the city. You're the person.
I'm also not the public meeting law. That's from the state. So
yeah,
that's where it's actually coming from.
Okay, at any rate, so we're in this situation where we have 2 or 3 good ideas. We don't have an easy way to communicate with each other about it except by sending email to the entire commission. I would suggest that we establish, as we did before, a small subcommittee that's under that keeps us under the rules for public meeting. We can announce that we're going to have a subcommittee meeting. We can do it, I'm presuming, via Zoom, limited to the number that we're allowed, whatever that number of people is.
I would really support not going down the route of adding more bureaucracy to what we're already in. One of the things I was really keen when I thought about being chair and agreed to take on chair, because one thing that has frustrated me is the meetings, and then a meeting to discuss a meeting and a meeting to discuss a meeting. And I'm really keen that we take responsibility for an action and we run with it. And I think emails are a perfectly good way of communicating with each other during this time. So even getting a draft article together and then circulating it. And I mean this I don't know, I think we have to move a little bit quicker, because at the moment, I mean, I'm 20% down on my time. I'm in Zoom meetings most of the day. To add more screen time in terms of meetings, I would be happy to meet outside, but then we can't do that. So I would be really, really keen that we lead on something, take it, and then come back to the whole group and just keep things moving. I think that would be a better way of doing it. I don't know if there are any other views.
So I would just ask the question, how are we allowed to collaborate outside of our public meetings? I'm confused, because my understanding is we can't use private email, and that we have to send emails to the whole group and wait for them to be shared.
No.
Can you help, Elizabeth?
Like, are you talking about like teaming up with someone to write an article?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just two people working on a project that's going to come to the whole commission for approval, that's fine. It's like if you get,
3 people, can 3 people do it?
it gets a little more complicated than that. We maybe could do something like that. I mean, again, if you guys are just writing certain sections, I think that's fine, and bring it together and then you can discuss it at the meeting. The main thing is we want most of the like discussion and deliberation to be at a meeting where the public can view, and the public also knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is action. These are action items that we're agreeing at this meeting. We want to write some articles and 2 or 3 people have volunteered. Seems to me then we're doing the work and we're bringing it back to the commission.
Then yeah,
Should be okay.
that would be fine. And because you're only kind of keeping it between those people, you're not before another meeting, including all of the commission.
Sorry, I was also thinking all the suggestions of the articles, they weren't for the people to come together and meet. They were all going to be drafted separately.
Yeah.
And I think
Right, but it would be nice if they came together before the next meeting so that we could sort of see if we have 1 article or 2 articles or 3 articles. That's all.
I'm going to butt in just for a second and then Marnie, but you know, the expectation has always been to submit the draft article so it goes out with the packet and the agenda. We have been a little lax on enforcing that since I've been hired. So I think if we can get back to that expectation of having the draft in the packet, that gives the public a chance to look at it. It gives everyone in the commission a chance to read it and provide some thoughtful edits. And it avoids being handed something and when you show up at the meeting and be like, hey, we're going to approve this tonight. We don't want to be in that position anymore. Hopefully that makes sense. Marnie?
I was just going to suggest that I join with Larry to write either 1 or 2 articles on masks and other conservation related things related to COVID. And we can decide with just 2 of us, you know, is that a whole page together or are those 2 separate articles? And we'll work that out and we'll bring it to the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay. And if anyone else has something to tell us or suggest, go ahead and do that via email.
I think a good rule of thumb for like the project work between meetings is to try to get it done within 2 weeks of the meeting, because that gives it time to circulate back through Elizabeth and the packet and all that stuff. Jamie?
Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Am I writing an article on the hazardous waste event within the next 2 weeks?
And that's also an opportunity for, as Risa mentioned, everything that's happened, like what can still be recycled in Ashland. Is that what you mentioned, Risa?
Yeah, just a reminder to people, just, you know, like, just, we haven't really heard much from Recology during, you know, this time. Just, you know, just like, hello, citizen. We still recycle these things.
So just know nothing's changed with recycling. So it will be just a reminder
Sure.
of, hey, okay.
Sure.
Okay.
I think.
So I am writing an article in the next 2 weeks about recycling and hazardous waste and stuff.
Yep, and Marnie and Larry are too. So that's 2 articles that we can look at. Yep.
James?
Sorry, I don't know what happened. I had to reboot. I'm back. So I don't know what conversation was happening before this, but I thought that Sneak Preview was not going to do Conservation Corner anymore. Can you give me a quick synopsis of what you guys talked about in terms of that?
We don't know. We'll find out tomorrow. That's.
Risa, awesome. Thank you.
Yep, it's quick.
Okay, so just keeping an eye on time. We have 9 minutes. Oh, so the other action was, so as well as those 2 articles, everyone else is going to suggest potential articles via email back to the group on what it could cover. So agenda item 6.2, we all filled in the doodle poll on a new meeting time and date discussion. Elizabeth, should I come to you for results of the doodle poll first?
Yeah, I didn't, let's see. It was in the packet. I only had 4 of you guys fill it out. So maybe some discussion on if you've got everyone else who didn't get to fill it out, their availability. It looks like the 4th Wednesday, either from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. or the 4th Wednesday, or current time, were the 2 winners, but there was even some that couldn't make all that. So I think it's open for you guys to talk.
Okay.
It seems like the 4th Wednesday works for most. It's just if you want to do it a little earlier or stay the same, so.
Well, I wonder if it makes a difference for people, whether we're in the pandemic mode doing electronic meetings versus in-person meetings. I know for me, it doesn't make much difference what time the meeting is if it's on Zoom, but at some point, maybe in a year or whenever it is that we go back to in-person meetings, then I would prefer slightly earlier, but I know that can interfere with people's work and family responsibilities.
Lisa?
I would prefer that we affirm the time and keep it the same. So I think that it's better communication to the public, and it's easier for my personal schedule to keep it the same, just to protect that time zone, whatever it is, as opposed to, well, during the pandemic we meet at this time, and then when we meet together in person, then we would switch. So my vote would be that whatever we decide, that it take us into the future.
So the 2 main options are Wednesday 5:30 to 7:30 or Wednesday 6 till 8. Is that right?
Yes, but because not everyone had a chance to vote, I mean, I think it's open for discussion if you guys want to talk about other dates and times, so.
Well, maybe the people who didn't the people that didn't fill out the doodle, those are the people we need to hear from.
I didn't fill out the doodle, and I have a conflict at 5:30 on Wednesdays.
Jamie?
I can't remember. Did we offer any morning times?
No, this was just based on what we had in February. So again, that's if you guys prefer more mornings, we could probably do
No,
that.
thank you.
It doesn't have to be at 6 a.m.
Morning doesn't work for my schedule.
Or mine.
I'm so sorry to have lost and come back again, but this is James. I like the 6 to 8 or 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. start times. Either one is good.
So based on what we've heard, I don't know who did the doodle, but the 5:30 time doesn't work with Marnie, so that puts us back 6 to 8. So maybe we should see if that time works.
My preference is during the day, but I don't know how much this affects other people. And for one evening every 4 weeks, then I will make changes, but my preference is for during the day. Anytime during the day, Monday to Thursday. Oh, my lights went off. Nice try. But I appreciate everyone's got schedules, so we have to find a date that works for everyone. And the fact maybe we just stick with the fourth Wednesday at the same time, because it's been quite difficult finding an alternative time that would suit everyone. I don't know if it changes in terms of if we have new members in the future, depending where and what they do, that changes things and we revisit it then, or if anyone else has a preference.
I could do during the day, just so I'm just saying that I am available during the day, and afternoon, like 3 to 5 would be great as well. I don't know if that is just disruptive for others though.
What works for you, Larry?
All the proposals work fine for me.
Okay, Brian? Brian?
Really, any 3 to 5 would work fine with me. I'm fine with anything. I would probably prefer that than to 6 to 8.
Is there anybody here who would not prefer 3 to 5? Okay, well, y'all can make a motion if you want, or table it for a future meeting.
Let's make a decision and move on to bigger and different things.
Do we need to hear from James? He's missing from this.
Yeah, the only complication maybe to note is that if we ever move back to in-person format, it's going to be more challenging to get a room. But you know, hopefully if we get to that point where things are functioning somewhat normally again, we can try to get on the calendar as soon as possible. But if there's any standing commission that's been meeting at that time forever, they're probably going to preempt us. So just keep that in mind. We may be forced back into this slot later, but that's okay.
Stephanie, does 3 to 5 work for you?
Yeah, it should. It's mostly for me the day of the week because I have meetings Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So
Let's ask James. He's just reappeared. James.
Can you hear me?
Does 3 to 5 work for you the fourth Wednesday of the month?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not seeing any of you. Yes, 3 to 5 works. That'd be great.
Okay, I'd like to make a movement of proposed.
Motion.
I move that the Conservation Climate Outreach Commission changes its meeting time from 3 to 5, the fourth Wednesday of every month.
I second that.
Second that.
Discussion?
None.
None.
Then we say, all those in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
those opposed,
None.
done. Next.
Sorry, I've lost everything but my audio, so here I am.
It's all right.
Okay, that was great. Agenda item 7. This is the main part of the meeting. I hope everyone's got energy left for this part of the meeting. So at the last meeting, we talked about where our focus could be in the coming months and over the next year, and putting aside the discussion around the CPC and the links there, we were focusing on the Climate Energy Action Plan, and we were all going to read this and think about the projects that we should actually be focusing on to help implement it in the city of Ashland. So I've had to think about how to do this. And I was thinking maybe we go round and rather than cover all three at a time, people just cover one of their ideas and then we'll go to the next person. Or if someone has a similar idea to one that was coming up, then they can cover that later on, or they pick one that's different first so that we can get a whole range of ideas first. So does anyone want to kick off?
I'm happy to kick off.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, so I would be really interested in seeing us have an emphasis for one of the areas be water and wastewater capital projects. And that extends to water conservation as well, but that's probably separate. And so it's the climate impact in terms of greenhouse gas emissions related to capital building projects of the city in water and wastewater, which are very related.
So is that in terms of the embedded carbon as well as the energy use during the use of those projects?
Both, yes.
Okay. And does anyone want to next reset?
I'm interested in water conservation, outreach, but not so much it's a different part of the flow that Larry spoke to.
Flow is a good word when you're talking about water, Risa.
I'm sorry?
I said flow is a good word when you're talking about
that
water.
was intentional.
Okay, so we'll put that as a separate one, water conservation.
Conservation, quality, storm drain, you know, those catchment, laundry to landscape.
So in terms of both these ideas, are there any, to bring it down a level from that high level, are there ideas in terms of what we would actually do as the commission?
Well, as relates to the water and wastewater projects, I mean, I've actually, as an individual citizen, already I've engaged members of the council as well as the public works director, encouraging that there be a more citywide discussion involving the community as well as staff and elected officials to talk about how, I guess, how climate change and the future of city water rates and all these things relate to each other, and finally how they might influence the planning and design and implementation of the capital projects that have already been approved to go forward but are still in the planning stage. And that's specifically the water treatment plant and upgrades to the wastewater treatment system.
Okay.
So what I mean is, so about finding a forum, a different forum than has been used in the past, which has been a sort of dog and pony show format. And there was interest. The public works director as well as individual councilors certainly seemed interested in having a more sort of comprehensive discussion and a little bit more give and take with the community rather than just allowing statements to be made and not responding to them. But it's a complicated thing, and I think that it'll be talked a lot about in the political season.
Okay. So, okay, maybe we come back to that one. I'm just trying to think of it as distinct projects that we can take forward where there's a kind of clear objective and a defined kind of piece of work with the endpoint. But I see what you're saying. It would be about creating that forum where we can have more discussion with the community about the carbon impact of water and wastewater treatment.
And specifically, there is a very specific thing, because I was going to ask later in this meeting about it. is the city of Ashland has a comprehensive water conservation plan that has a huge impact on the planning of these projects, potentially, but there's been an intentional avoidance of connecting the long-term water conservation plan with the actual capital plans. And one of the ways that we can work through that is, number one, I encourage that we invite Julie Smitherman to a meeting, our next meeting or the meeting after, to update us on the city's water conservation plan, the implementation of it and the effectiveness of it. And that some of that information could be used in the discussion of how water conservation impacts capital plans. It's pretty complicated stuff, but there's a very concrete area around what the city is already doing that could allow it to be discussed. And I think it would be productive and helpful for everybody.
Okay. Risa?
I have an interest in revisiting with a group that was called the Waste Prevention Subcommittee. Not attached to what it's called. I'm attached to exploring whether efforts that we were involved with pre-COVID about looking at the single-use ban idea. I think it would be valuable to revisit that with the group. And y'all are here, some of you here, and just see what makes sense today. That's pretty specific of, yeah.
Okay. Yep. And Brian or Mani or Jamie?
I'd be very interested in the water issues, but also I think the big issue is climate change, and I guess I would really want to spend my time and energy on trying to see how we can engage the citizens in the climate plan more through education and social media, whatever.
Okay. Mani?
Yeah, just to build on what Brian said, I was thinking, I mean, I know Marion started doing her outreach groups, and it seems like, you know, all of a sudden everyone's on Zoom, everyone's on Facebook Live. It's kind of a whole different world than where we started with that. But it also gives us some opportunities to have bigger audiences or more targeted audiences. So I would definitely be interested in getting some types of meetings going where you can actually interact with people, but we can get information out specific to the SEEP with Stu's guidance kind of on what topics, you know, we want to be highlighting. And I know for me, one of the big ones is just getting people off natural gas. So that would be something I'd be interested in as well. But in general, I want to see us all come together to focus on a few specific topics rather than being so scattered in our interests. So I'm perfectly willing to work on another topic that maybe isn't my key topic, but just really putting our energy in together collectively. So I think that's important.
Thanks, Mani. Jamie?
I'd like to revisit the single-use ban. That's good with me as well. And just focus on virtual outreach, whatever that looks like. You know, we needed to be doing it anyway because the world is virtual now, and now with the COVID thing, it makes it even more important in my mind.
Okay. I had one on, so page 61, the urban form land use and transportation section. I looked at this and then looked at what our role could be. And There's an Ashland Trails master plan in terms of biking infrastructure. There's a call for more safe biking infrastructure downtown. And then there's also a mountain biking proposal to try and bring that all together in terms of rebuild of the economy. And there's an action in our climate energy action plan about implementing a bicycle and pedestrian friendly sort of actions in the city's transportation system and in our downtown parking management plan. So I'm thinking all these strategies and plans coming from different groups, they all have something in common, and that's about that active travel, the biking infrastructure, and they all link to the economy as well, because that would be something that Ashland could diversify into in terms of growing its mountain biking and also its biking. You then attract businesses, you would build in tool stations, and there's cities that have done this, and they've done it very well. So I was actually thinking something that we could do is look at all these plans that link to our biking infrastructure to understand the synergies and how they support each other. And maybe there's potentially, I know that some surveys have been done in this area to understand what the barriers are, but maybe we could conduct a community survey that brings those questions together to find out a bit more about it, so we can help all those different bodies work together to break it down. And that in turn would be implementing the climate energy action plan action around the biking infrastructure. And I don't know if this also would link to, hopefully in the future, resurrecting the bike share and things like that. Ashland, I found out a fact when I was reading one of these proposals this week. In terms of Oregon, it's the 4th least safe city in terms of vehicle biking collisions. That shocked me. I was absolutely shocked to read that, because we're not a big city, we're small, and we can do better than that, surely. But I think there's a real opportunity in terms of, particularly around what we could do as a commission, linking to some economic plans here and bringing sustainability and climate change to them. So that was one of my ideas. The other one ties in really nicely with what you were saying, Jamie, in terms of virtual outreach. I was then reading the section on responsible consumption, and I reckon we can do some great campaigns around responsible consumption, which links into some of these articles we've already mentioned. And then also going back and revisiting single use was my other one. I don't think all's lost there, because there's loads of things we can do around single use that hopefully people won't say, but I need single use now because it's more hygienic. I rather bring your own, so because then you know where it's been. So they were my 3. I've gone into 3, but actually one I wanted to do about the transport, but then just add my support for 2 of the others. So they're the ones I had at the moment. James, did you have any?
I do. Thank you. So sorry for coming and going. I rebooted my computer 3 times.
Well, you're back with the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, here I am. Hey, I'm in San Francisco right now. Overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So my energy these days is about interfacing between the climate and energy action plan of the policy side with the commission, with our commission. And I would love to be able to take what is happening in our commission and being able to tie that into their commission and vice versa. So I'd like to be able to act as an interface between the 2 commissions to bring together what we do as educational process, which might be the result of policy, or our desire for some sort of educational process into them to help them become part of what might become policy. So that's where my energy is right now.
Okay. So that's lots of ideas. Should we go around again? Does anyone have any others? Stephanie.
What I would say that I see when I talked about the last council meeting, for example, and the planning action, it was about cottage housing and parking. and the neighborhood not liking some of the decisions that planning had made regarding those things. So that's another area, getting the public to understand infill and understand how less parking spaces might relate to climate, energy, and the SEEP Commission. Because they don't always.
James?
Thank you. Stephanie, I have this kind of thing that's been going on in my mind about infill, parking, et cetera, et cetera. I know there are a lot of industry or companies downtown or businesses that don't want to see their businesses impacted by closing street structure areas down and so forth. And I have observed through the last few weeks that somehow somebody came to some resolution where you wouldn't close down all the plaza, or at least 3/4 of the plaza, but you would shut down part of it. And I just want to say that I really appreciate maybe the synergy that's going on between the businesses that cared about their impacted business with closure and those who wanted to have outdoor seating. And I would encourage us to have that dialogue with, especially with the Chamber of Commerce, toward how we could look at a vibrant downtown and have that kind of semi-closure on a more permanent basis in the seasons that it's appropriate.
One of the differences that I saw with, I'm also a liaison on the chamber, was that there was a difference in terms of what restaurants wanted or needed and what retail wanted or needed.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that.
Lisa?
I feel like I just need to add to the topic that James and Steph have brought up, because from what the feedback that I have heard from downtown businesses is I couldn't frame that effort by the chamber in the city as successful. There are some extremely disappointed and frustrated businesses there, and this isn't specific to this commission, but I feel compelled just to say that I don't think it's a time for us to pat ourselves on the back and say, yep, we made some changes downtown and they enhanced opportunities for the businesses, because from what I've heard firsthand, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's great opportunity in this area, and I really hope that efforts continue to provide voices for those businesses adversely affected by how that all came down.
Is this something for outside this meeting? I feel
That's
partly cryptic, so
I know.
I don't know, maybe this is a conversation for the decision makers outside of this meeting.
Yeah, it isn't I just was hearing all this. I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. Sorry.
No, I get that.
So I might add that this is the key to what I would consider conservation and the ability to reduce carbon emissions and bring people outside under conditions that are COVID in this case. And we're finding unique ways to bring this all together. And that if there's a way that this commission, because of our educational component of us, can bring that to, Chamber of Commerce, wherever it is, if there's something we can do to help elicit, open that dialogue up, it might be really valuable, because those who are opposed to parking, losing parking, those who want more open space may have an open dialogue. And that's, to me, that's part of our mission as our commission, to bring education toward that opening of that dialogue. And so it could mean even city sponsored Conservation Commission, Outreach Commission, Climate Outreach Commission dialogue toward that goal, even a survey, something that would bring that forward. So
I agree, James, because I don't think we're in a position to comment or judge unless we've been part of the dialogue and the process that came to the decision. So it's easy for me to walk past and think, oh, that could turn into a perfect European plaza. Doesn't it look beautiful if it was more permanent? But I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know what the businesses are facing. I don't know the process they've gone through, if they were involved in the decision or if they had it put on them in terms of, they might have chosen to locate there because there was parking. And then, so all of that. And I wouldn't want to come out and say, this is great, it's outside. I look at it and say, it's great, it's outside, but it also impacts on a lot of people. So unless we're part of that whole decision and discussion, it's really hard to then come forward with a view that's meaningful and useful. I just hope they are having that open discussion, but it sounds like it wasn't as useful as that.
Well, I really appreciate that perspective because it is a matter of dialogue. And if we have a particular perspective of conservation, of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and the social impacts of that, we have the capacity to be able to enter into that dialogue with them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think we need to be in that dialogue at the beginning. Yeah.
I think that there's too a background to all of that everyone may not know, in terms of Main Street and the Department of Transportation and how much of the Main Street we can control. We would have to, in a sense, have a different agreement with the DOT in terms of taking over that roadway in order to make some of the changes that people would like to see, or some people.
Thank you for that. Yeah, there's another element to it, obviously.
Yeah, and that involves budget and paying for the roadway in terms of maintenance. So things go, there are layers of things, I guess.
Okay, so are there any more projects, areas of focus?
I'd like to see, in terms of outreach too, people have changed their behavior, at least a lot of people have, with the pandemic, and looking at doing with less and probably less traveling, and some of the positive changes they may have made. It would be interesting to share some positive things.
Mm-hmm. The SOCAN survey covered some of that. Did you get a chance to read that?
No.
Yeah, that came out, was it earlier this week? Has anyone else seen that? It's SOCAN sent it out. It's really interesting summary. Could we circulate
the SOCAN one?
Yeah, the SOCAN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Would you kind of summarize that Spokane finding?
Well, it's quite a lengthy survey. We could send it to the group. Elizabeth, sorry.
Yeah, I did send it to you guys, I think last Friday. If you can't find it, I can send it again. Just shoot me an email and I'll forward it, no problem.
Yeah, I thought that survey, thank you, Elizabeth. That was really, I wouldn't have gotten it as soon without you sending it. So it was great to get it. And it was really good to see how enthusiastic the community seems to be based on the survey results in participating in efforts to do what they can. It was encouraging.
Yes, I thought the same. It was really encouraging results. I would have liked to see a slightly different demographic completing it, to be honest. I would have, more probably younger to see where they're coming at it. As the future generations in Ashland, I just would have been interested in their views. That was the only thing I kind of picked up on that was probably a gap for me.
Well, my hand is up, even though you can't see me, I guess. But I think that I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I have friends, my daughter's friends, who are also that age. And there's a lot of apathy right now. And personally, I think that age group in the, say, 18 to 25 to 40-year-old age group are people that were not able to access because of apathy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a way that we can engage, we can bring into the commission, for instance, someone who is that age group who can bring that kind of energy into our purview, because none of us are there. So
No.
Jamie, you're as close as we get.
Yes, you're the representative, Jamie.
So, I would like for us to bring in that younger energy into the commission that would help us to reach out into the community in a way that's meaningful to the community that we're trying to reach, that age group.
Jamie?
Generally speaking, no matter what year it is, aren't 18 to 25-year-olds just in general the most apathetic? I mean, weren't they the most, if we're gonna go there, like 40 years ago, wasn't that demographic also apathetic? I mean, I don't necessarily think that it's a right now type of thing. Just throwing that out there. I don't know how relevant it is, but.
Well, it's possible, but when I was back in my time, which is a long time ago, we were really active at the 18 to 25-year-old age. And this is something that's been missing for that.
I think
you and your friend group, though.
Yeah.
I think there are, like, it just, it depends who you are. There are some really big youth movements from where I come from in Scotland. The Climate 2050 group is a youth group, and it is hugely active and in Parliament regularly and up there in panels, conferences, and that youth voice is heard. And same with some of the movements and the grassroots activities that the students do at SOU. I just don't think that demographic was reached in terms of this survey to help us, and I think that would have been useful. Risa?
And let's not forget about Greta Thunberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's far from apathetic.
Just
Brian.
Do we have right now a commissioner from the school district, or was the person we had a temporary one?
No, we do. We have Steve from the school district. Is that right, Elizabeth?
But he hasn't been for the last two meetings, right? Is he committed, or?
He's kind of taken on a larger role at the school district, so we might check in with their superintendent and him to see if we can get someone else. I think he wanted to be involved, but I mean, I don't know what his workload's like. They're going through a lot, so I can check in on that though.
The reason I ask is that two of the science teachers at the high school have retired this year, and I'm just wondering if they're replaced with a new science teacher who might be interested.
Okay, so that's quite a list of different things we could focus on. I think we need to turn them into like finite projects with our overall goal of what we're trying to do, because otherwise it grows arms and legs. I think there's a real sense and satisfaction if we had something and focused on it and then pushed it forward. I don't know if those that suggested each of the ones want to turn it into like maybe 3 objectives that we could achieve and then come back and vote on them at the next meeting, or if they also, actually it might be better to do this before the next meeting. If everyone took the one they suggested with 3 objectives, could send it to me and I'd be happy to collate, and then we look at how we prioritize them and work on them. Are there any other ideas?
Well, Rebecca, this is James, even though I'm not on video. I see as objectives as being, you know, higher level things we want to do. And I can see at least 2 objectives which are important, one of which is what do we do as a commission? And number 2, how do we interface with the Climate Outreach Commission or Climate Policy Commission? And so I would just implore you to consider how that might play out. Like there might be 2 primary objectives for us. One is internal operations and one is how we interface with other commissions, including and most importantly, the Climate Policy Commission.
Okay.
So anyway, just my input.
Yeah, no, that's great, James. We had that earlier on in the meeting in terms of where we're at with the Climate Policy Commission and all 30 commissions and what we need to do there. At the moment, that is not within I guess within the scope of what we're discussing here. This is actually taking what is our climate policy in terms of our climate energy action plan, looking at it and seeing what our role is as a commission, as the Conservation and Climate Outreach Commission, in terms of implementing it. So we've had the water and wastewater capital projects, water conservation, such as storm drains, revisiting and picking up the single use, how we can engage citizens about the climate energy action plan, looking at Ashland and natural gas in terms of outreach, virtual outreach, the transport infrastructure in terms of cycling, and then also positive behavior around the pandemic and how we can link that to climate change. So they were all the different project ideas that we had come forward. So it was scoping them out, I guess, objectives. You know, I was using that as a more sort of for each of those projects in terms of the details. So maybe what is the outcome for each of those areas? What can we help to implement to achieve in Ashland? And then look at how we prioritize it between us, because there's only 1, 2, 7 of us, 6 of us, and then how we work on them together to move something forward as a commission, fulfilling our purpose. Does that, I don't know, does that make sense?
I have my hand up even though you can't see me, this is James. It makes total sense to me how we move as a commission, and every step that we take has a relationship with the Climate Policy Commission as well. And every step they take has a relationship to them with us. Yeah. So if they have an idea for a policy, or if we have an idea for an education program that causes the need for a policy, there needs to be that kind of connection.
Yes. So, well, we have the Climate Energy Action Plan, which is policies and actions across the board for Ashland. And then we have the meet and greet with them. And then Risa, myself, a meeting with Tonya and Rick. And then there's also discussions how the 30 commissions interact. So I think we're aware of that relationship and dependency there. I think in terms of this commission, if we look at what we can work on, and then we can let them know, we've taken the climate energy action plan. This is what we're looking to work on. How can it complement what you guys are working on or support what you're working on? But other than that, I'm not sure, unless I'm completely missing something, I'm not sure what else we can do at this stage. Elizabeth?
And this is me just kind of butting in, so I'm sorry. But no, I think that's a good idea. And actually, if you guys could get some of these projects and objectives this meeting and approved, maybe we need to go into September as well. I think CPC really wants to know what you're all going to be working on and how they can kind of combine. So if you have that ready for the meet and greet, even though it's informal, that would be a nice update to give them.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. That's really helpful. Well, I'd be happy to collate it if everyone wanted to send me, and we can always say to them we haven't prioritized them yet, but if everyone wanted to send me the idea they had with like 3, sort of just to help define the scope and the objectives of each area of what we've been working on. So for instance, just Larry, what you were saying about the water and wastewater capital projects, and how you were describing what we could do as a commission, just being able to summarize that in a few bullets. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great.
Okay. And then either you or Risa, because you both had the idea, do the water conservation. And then Jamie, Risa, and I can do the single use between us. And then the citizens in the climate plan, I think that was you, Brian. Risa, sorry.
Well, yeah, I was muted. Marnie was a part of that as well. I don't know if she still wants to be a part of it, but I just wanted to interject that.
Okay.
I think Marnie and I had mentioned that.
The water part? I'm
No,
sorry.
So
Okay.
Lisa was talking about the single use. And
The single use.
Brian was talking about citizens, reaching out to citizens regarding the climate plan.
Yeah. Okay. I was definitely talking about the same thing as Brian.
Okay.
So Rebecca, I was once again missing because my system's acting up, but I wonder if I can have some sort of entry into an interface between the two commissions that can help bridge the gap between what we think our educational approach and what they see as policy approach and how we might bridge that gap.
And do you see that in addition to the meet and greet we've got coming up? Because that
I
would
would see
be
that as part of the meet and greet.
I'm going to jump in here. It's great. Everybody agrees, I think, that we want to have some connection between the two groups. That's essential on some level. But it's also essential that the two commissions be able to function independently and adhere to the requisite public process. If this commission wants to communicate with the other commission, it's going to have to go through staff. That's the way public law requires that it go. Individuals can talk to each other. You don't need my permission to have coffee with somebody who's on the policy commission. But if there's a communication from a commission to a commission, it has to go upstream. That's not my rule, but that's the way it is.
Thank you, Stu.
You're welcome. I know it's frustrating, and believe me, it's probably most frustrating for me because I have to defuse a lot of bombs in this way.
I understand. Yeah.
And I really don't want to get a really cool project going and then get called on insufficient public process or malprocess or something. It's happened before. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. But I do have another comment I was going to add in here eventually, if now's an okay time, unless there's more that you wanted to say, James.
Just only one thing, and that is we've had this discussion about a liaison between the two commissions. And
Yeah, and I think the verdict of that discussion was that we weren't going to put commissioners on two commissions, but it's not my decision. That's what I recall being the outcome of that conversation.
right, it's not that about putting two of us on, one commission, but
Mhm.
more about who we might have to represent our commission at another commission meeting. And that's part of my want, is to be able to represent officially what the Conservation and Climate Outreach Commission has to offer,
Sure.
and then how it potentially interfaces with the Climate Policy Commission.
Yeah, I hear you. You want to be an emissary of sorts. So we've created this spot on the agendas for both commissions where a commissioner from an outside commission has a little spot on the agenda to give updates. It's been there since just around right before COVID started, I think. That's an opportunity for you to basically summarize the minutes of the last meeting. It's not a deliberative slot on the agenda. There's not going to be any standing agenda items unless the commissions choose to add them. But right now there's that spot for a commissioner to go to the other commission and say, hey, here's what we're talking about, and give a quick update. I think that would be welcome by both groups. It hasn't happened yet, except for when Larry came that one time. But it was a little, the agenda was a little weird on that meeting. But it's there for you to communicate. It's a bit of a one-way shot, but it's better than what we had before. I guess there's more I could add to that, but
Stu, can I add? So we agreed at the last meeting, and that's all been put in place, to have this meet and greet to just build some solid relationships here. I don't think we don't have to look at us as two divided commissions. We just can build some solid relationships. I've spoken to the people on or a couple of people on the Climate Policy Commission about other things, but I don't know everyone on there. I'm really intrigued to know everyone on there, and I just want to say hi and who I am. And I think we can all do that at the meet and greet. And then Risa and I are meeting with their chair and vice chair, and we're going through the council on that as well. So I think maybe let's take stock after that, because the big thing that interests me is if we meet and greet and we're all aligned around the Climate Energy Action Plan and supporting each other, it's the other 28 commissions that I'm more interested in and want to build relationships there. But we can't all go sit on 28 other commissions. So I think we need to just, not just work out what we're doing and then see what we can sort of, step by step in terms of those relationships, if that makes sense. Because I think if we all have that meet and greet and just understand who each other is, I think it will be less of a mystery too. I don't know. That's just where my head is at. If there's anything anyone wants to add.
I think the other reality is that in January, we're going to have a new mayor and a lot of new council members in. How that will work out in terms of how they see commissions, and may mean some changes there too.
Yep, that's true. Okay.
I had one. Oh, good.
No, go on, Stu.
I had one more little piece that I would like to add. It's, I guess, a bit of a request. If you look at the commission webpage with the charter and all that business, there's the powers and duties section, which outlines, broadly but somewhat specifically what this commission should be focusing on. I would love it if every piece of work we deliver had a very clear tie back to one of those bullet points. Because if it doesn't, it's hard to justify the work from a policy standpoint. But if it does reinforce, and I think you'll find a lot of good ammunition for what you want to do there. But for me, for tracking purposes, for making a stronger case and keeping things organized, it's really helpful to know that, oh, this project is focusing on reducing consumption emissions from the general population, or this is an air quality project, or whatever, wherever it fits is fine, as long as we can tie it back to the charter. That makes our work much stronger, and I think we can say, hey, especially when we deliver to decision makers, that this is the work we were tasked to do, and then really show how it's connected to that.
That's really helpful, Stu. That could be a good addition to the little summary of each project idea, just to make sure we're aligned with that. Yeah.
And I'm happy to help you collate that together. But if folks look at that while you're thinking of your project idea, maybe it'll shift how you present it.
That's a good idea. Okay. So Elizabeth, are we okay sharing as each person gets that little project idea? Can they email it to me so I can collate them? Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as it's just to you and we don't have like replying back and forth. That would make a quorum. So, like you can reply to someone individually who sent you something, but don't, add another commissioner onto that conversation, if that makes sense.
Okay. So
Don't hit reply all.
Okay.
Right.
So in terms of the project ideas, if you send it to me, and then am I okay collating it and sending it to you, Elizabeth?
Yes, as long as you don't change anything that they initially input, or mainly we just want all the deliberation to happen at the next meeting. So if we just have a good list together, no real changes, then everyone can make changes and talk for the next meeting.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay. So if there's no changes, are they okay replying all and coming to you then? No.
Well, I guess so my understanding is that people individually will email you, or it could also be me if you don't want to have to sort everything individually. They wouldn't do the whole commission on that email. And then you would make a master list with all those things and bring it back, the full list, to the commission to talk about it as a whole.
Okay, let's stick with that plan. If everyone emails me their project idea, then I'll collate it and get it to Elizabeth, and we'll discuss it in the next meeting.
Well, and couldn't that list that you send to Elizabeth just be part of our packet for the next meeting?
Yeah, it will be. That's how you guys will see it. But I'm just saying we're not going to be emailing it to you before that, which I think you guys all understood that anyway, so.
Okay. And then we'll have, we'll be able to prioritize, and we can start working on some stuff together. That would be exciting. Resurrect single use in COVID times. Or non-single use, banning single use in COVID times. So are there any, what time is it? Oh, we're ahead of time. Risa.
I had a request of Stu for the next meeting to give us an update on what the city has decided for dealing with the plastic bag ban. I have been to one grocery store that they're now allowing you to bring your own bag, and only one has reinstituted the 10 cents for a new bag, and that is not the co-op. And I'm just curious what the city's stance is, because anyway, if you could just tell us what the word is from the big government.
I can tell you right now that I know nothing about it. And as far as I know, it's a wonderful ordinance that has no enforcement action written into it, right? So Elizabeth has something to say. Maybe she's more informed than I am, which is almost always the case.
I don't know about that, but there was an ordinance that we put through essentially kind of repealing ours because the state law is in effect. And I can try and look up that ordinance and send it to you and maybe get Adam to comment.
Well, the thing is, the city of Ashland passed an ordinance, then the state passed an ordinance. Since COVID, you know, it's just been thrown out the window across the board from everyone. My question as a consumer and a person who you know what I'm like, I would like to know officially if the city is totally fine with us throwing the ordinance out the window for the moment, or, you know, just update us. Am I not making sense?
I hear your question, but I don't, you know, who is the city? Is the city the administration, or is it the voters, or is it the city council? Like, this decision is not just one person's decision. That's the thing I'm trying to unpack here is, I hear your question. I will inquire and try to get you a better answer by the next meeting.
The question is, since COVID, through no official means, the city hasn't addressed the issue. I'm wondering what the city's stance is. Maybe it's important to find out what the state's stance is, because the city used to, the council voted to reduce the waste of plastic bags and to enlist 10 cents for every new bag. Since COVID, that has gone away. I'm asking the question, where are we today?
Steph, do you have something to bring here?
Well, what I would say is that we're under an emergency declaration right now, and really most of the decision making is in Adam's hands in terms of enforcement and staff use, and so I would say that it's been affected by the emergency declaration.
But there's nothing, but the city has not formally said yay or nay. It's just something that's occurred. I just think it's good if you have an ordinance, either you say it's suspended until further notice, or what?
I think that's what the emergency declaration does.
It is.
I don't know.
Elizabeth, are you gonna?
So Risa, what was the state bag ban beginning of January 2020, right?
I think it was before that.
Okay, our legal team did put something through that essentially says ours is repealed. I'm trying to find it. I'm sorry. It's
okay. Just let us know at the next meeting. That's all. I didn't need to take up our remaining moments. I'd really like an update next month. That would be swell.
I'll include that ordinance that was passed and the council communication kind of staff report with that, so you guys can read, and then we can talk about it. But because both Stu and I weren't really involved, so I can't give you all the good details.
It's okay. Next month would be great. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any, Larry, the email you sent about having someone on the agenda at the next meeting?
Yes, I wanted to request that we invite Julie Smitherman to do a presentation either at our next meeting or the meeting after on the status of City of Ashland water conservation plans, both not plans and implementation. And she's done this before, but I think that it would be good to have an update. I did talk to her. She was very enthusiastic about coming to a meeting. She did indicate a preference, though, I think, for rather than the September meeting, the October meeting.
Okay, shall we go with that then? Because then we can focus on aligning what we're going to work on as well, and that would be great if we go with the October meeting. Who does? Sorry, Larry. Who does she work for?
She's the
sorry.
She's the City of Ashland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's the water conservation program person. What's her title, Stu?
Water conservation specialist or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Elizabeth and I will take care of that invitation.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, then.
And if just one detail on that, Stu, it would be great if you could discuss with Julie and Elizabeth and maybe also Rebecca how much time should be given to the report, and consider allowing some time for commissioners to ask questions. Because
Yeah,
there's a way to just get updated.
that's standard. Normally to have a staff visit would be like 15 or 20 minutes, unless there's a specific issue that we can delineate for her that she can speak more directly to. Is that adequate?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Could we also ask her to update us on the status of the TID, the covering of the TID, where after the community?
Yeah, I'm sure you can ask her any question you like. She gets that question all the time.
Okay.
From what I gather. Although I haven't seen her in months, so what can I say? Elizabeth.
Just to clarify, do we want her for October, or Larry, you said she preferred November, but
No, she preferred October to
okay.
September.
October. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, if that's everything, then I'll bring the meeting to a close.
Well, before we do, Steph, I would like to ask you a question. You are currently our liaison. What is the status of your status with us?
I don't know really who is liaisons in terms of, I don't think there'll be any changes until the new election.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I understand.
I just want to say I really appreciate your participation and being part of our interface between you and City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Double check before I say then, is there anything else? Okay, I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a
Good job, Rebecca. Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good meeting, thanks.
Thanks.